your background in martial arts, it was just Kenpo to start with, and then it was Krav Maga, or was it Krav Maga first and then
No,
Kenpo?
it was Kempo initially, and then my instructor took me to as a gift to me, took me to a Krav Maga seminar that Darren Levine taught. And that was my first intro to Krav Maga. And then when I came out to California, I really couldn't find a Kempo school that I wanted to train in. It just was not uh, rough and tumble enough for me. So I ended up doing a search and found a Krav Maga school in Fremont, California. And I went there to talk to the head instructor, a guy named Ed Pepper. And I spoke to him for about an hour, and I was back there that night training in Krav Maga.
Wow, what a small world.
Yeah, yeah. It's and Ed Pepper, of course, is one of the owners of the Academy of Self Defense, and we've been partners for 18 years.
Wow. So you went into Kenpo, was that during your bar business or after your bar business?
You know, what happened was I was in a situation in my nightclub where I caught a guy in the bathroom selling coke, and I grabbed him and I threw him out of the bar. And we had two ways of throwing someone out of the bar: the nice way and the hard way. The nice way, we opened the door up for you first. The bad way, the hard way, is we used you to open the door. So with one great push, I exited him out the hard way. He went into the door, hit the breaker bar, and landed face first on the sidewalk. So the next night, I was actually tending bar, and these two dudes got into a fight with each other. And I was a master at jumping over that bar and grabbing people if I had to. So I cleared the bar out, jumped over the bar, and I grabbed one kid and shoved him away. And when I turned around, the other guy just cold cocked me right in the face. He blasted me. I mean, this kid knew how to punch. He just nailed me, and they actually staggered me. And then they both tried to get out of the bar, at which time my bouncers closed in on them. And what happened was, these were the kids' brothers who I had thrown out the day before, and they set me up.
Wow.
They knew if they tried to take me on face to face, I'd wipe them both out. But they set me up. They play fighted, and then when I jumped over the bar to break it up, they had it all planned out. So I said to myself at that point, I was in my early 40s. I said, you know, Neal, 10 years ago, that would have never happened to you. It's time to do some training. And I called all the different martial arts schools in the Worcester, Massachusetts area. And I was asking them the same question. I said to all of them, have you ever used your martial arts in a fight? And I got all these stories from these characters. And this is the exact point I made out in my first video with Ed. There's a lot of empty bottles in the martial arts world, guys who play tough and think they're tough, but have never been in an actual fight. And a guy like me who's been in at least 1,000 of them, and many more most likely, you don't keep count of them after a while. I knew just from talking to them, they were full of it. So this one guy I called up, his name was Harry Grimm, and I said, did you ever use your Kempo karate in a real fight? And he said, yeah, sort of. And I said, well, tell me about it. He said, I was in New York with my wife, and we were walking down the street, and there were some guys coming towards us who I knew were badasses, and I knew there was going to be a fight. So I used my Kempo. I said, well, what the heck did you do? He said, I crossed the street, and everything was fine. So I said, yeah, I'm coming into your school tomorrow. I want to start training. So that's my story about how I got into Kempo,
Nice.
which I trained in. Took me about 5 years to earn a black belt, and I was really grateful because this was a blue collar school, and Worcester is one badass tough city, and I got to train with some real bona fide tough guys, and I ended up teaching for Harry for about 10 straight years after that, and that's when I moved to California, and could not find that kind of Kempo. I considered it a little bit on the watered down side and a little bit too dancey for me. And that's how I ended up going to the Krav Maga school with Ed Pepper.
Nice. Do you remember your first Krav Maga class with Ev? Did he did
Absolutely.
he do the
A-
same thing he does now with all the students?
Absolutely. It was the same incredible, positive, energetic, esteem building, you can do it type training. And they had this great concept at SDI, it was Self Defense Institute, where on Tuesdays they did a 2 hour class for all Krav students. The first part of the hour was just badass drills and punching and kicking and blocking. And then it broke down into levels. And that was my first class. And I just fell in love with it right away.
Nice. And then how long did you train under Ev Pepper at SDI?
I trained under a paper. I was at SDI for a couple of years, at which time they started having business problems, excuse me. And Ed said to me, he said, you seem to have a lot of free time. Um, I said, yeah, I actually was blessed enough to retire early. I said, when I'm bored as heck, and I was actually talking to my wife about getting a job at Costco just to do something. And my wife laughed at me. He said, well, he goes, I'm getting ready to leave SDI. Things are not working out. Why don't we start a school? I said, that might be kind of a cool thing. I said to myself, it'll be sort of like a hobby for me. It'll be a business that I don't have to do because I don't need the money. But, I always loved this stuff. So maybe it'll be some fun. I went home, talked to my wife about it. My wife looked at me. She said, go for it. Go for it right away. You need to get the hell out of this house and do something. So we started the business in 2005. And here we are 18 years later after training tens of thousands of people.
Wow. So the can you tell me a little bit more about Krav Maga and how Krav Maga actually got started?
Absolutely. It's very interesting, but I, at one point in my life, studied the Holocaust for 10 straight years, read every book I could get my hands on. And I understand it. I understand the emotions it generates. And I understand that the creation of Israel and Krav Maga were a big part of it. Amy Lichtenfield, who lived in Eastern Europe, whose father was a police chief, and Amy in the late 1930s was also a very established Jewish boxer and wrestler. And he actually competed in the Maccabeah Games, which was a sort of an Olympics for Jewish people. He was actually born and raised in Czechoslovakia, and he was noted for fighting anti-Semites. He was all about protecting the Jewish people. And he eventually immigrated to Israel. And during that time, he was involved with training some of the elite units of the Haganah and the Palmach, which were the forerunner of the special units in the Israeli Defense Forces. But in 1948, when Israel was allowed to partition half of, quote, Palestine into a place for Jews to live, they were going to declare statehood. And when they did, they knew that all the Arab countries around them were going to attack them. It was a fact. And at that time, the population of Israel was basically 600,000 of the Sabras. These were Middle Eastern Jews from places like Morocco and other countries in that area, Yemen, Iran. All the Arab countries had Jewish populations, and there were about 600,000 of these Jews in the Palestinian area. And then there was about 600,000 survivors of the Holocaust. And these people were incredibly tough people. These are people that survived the concentration camps, and these were people who lived for the last 2,000 years in Israel, surrounded by literally Arab enemies who had to fight every day to survive. So the core of the original Israeli population, these were lions. These were people of great strength and great courage who were on a historical mission, some of them to survive the Holocaust and others to survive Israel and give the Jewish people a foothold there when they returned. So David Ben-Gurion, who was the first prime minister of Israel, knew they were going to go to battle. And he went to EME and said, we need to develop a hand-to-hand combat system. We got the ferociousness, we've got the desire to live, we've got the warrior there, but we need to give him some skills. And that really is the birth of Krav Maga. That's where it comes from. And its roots are just literally rooted in the blood, sweat, and tears of the Jewish people. And that's why there is such an emotional attachment of Krav Maga in Israel and to every, I think, Jewish person in the world, because we all know deep down that none of us are really safe unless we have the Israeli military. That is the Israeli military protects every Jew in the world. And that's why I personally am so proud to be part of Krav Maga, because I know its roots, and I know that Eme's great dream and why he developed Krav was so every person in the world could walk in peace. In other words, you don't have to walk in fear. You don't have to deal with bullies. You don't have to deal with anti-Semites. You don't have to deal with gangbangers and other evil fools that are out there in the world. You have and can develop the skills and the courage and the self-esteem and the motivation to defend yourself. And that's the beauty of Krav Maga. And that's really where it comes from. And unfortunately, many of the American organizations have lost sight on that. Okay, they have taken Krav and they've used it for their own purposes to make money, to get off on ego-wise. But the real core of Krav Maga is the birth of Israel and the rebirth of the Jewish people in the land. And that's why it works, because it has historical roots. It's not just a business program. It's not just a martial art. A nation survived because of the hand-to-hand combat skills that Emi Lichtenfield taught to the Israeli Defense Forces, and it's called Krav Maga. So that's it.
So was Emi actually in the military, or he just
No,
participated in the
no.
games, and then they approached him, or
Yes,
how did that work?
yeah. He just ended up going there. He reached Palestine in 1942, and he supervised what was called the 11th Infantry Battalion in Czechoslovakia, and he taught them knife and defenses against knife attacks. And during that period, that's when he trained some of the several elite units of the Haganah and the Palmach. These were military units before Israel became a country, before it was actually partitioned, when they were actually fighting the British to get them the heck out of there so they could have their country. And he modified Krav Maga to fit the needs of the police and ordinary civilians after he taught it to the Israeli Defense Forces as their hand-to-hand combat system. And he trained teams of Krav Maga instructors who were accredited to him. And the two big ones were the International Krav Maga Association, the Krav Maga Federation, and worldwide. And everyone in the Krav Maga world owes a big thank you to guys like Darren Levine and Eyal Yanilov, who were the ones who brought Krav Maga to the United States under Emi's tutelage.
So can you talk about more how he created the system and what he actually drew from? Like, how did he figure out the best way to defend against a knife or a weapon? Was that taken from other systems, or Did he
No,
was it
he
just trial and error, or what was going on
this
there?
was this was he was a training genius, Emi, and he went by keeping things simple, addressing the danger, and basically obliterating your opponent. Okay, the big problem in a lot of self defense is it's it it's all based in the defense and not turning the equation around and destroying your opponent. If you play with the knife long enough, the knife is going to cut you up. So what you need to do is avoid the knife and then neutralize it with a vicious attack. And that's really the essence of Krav Maga. And the story is, okay, and it's a story, but I think it's true because I've heard it from so many different places that Emi took children and attacked them and saw their natural reactions to the attacks. And he developed that into the Krav Maga system because he knew instinctually is what you are going to do. So in other words, when someone chokes you, the first thing you're going to do, and when they really choke you, not play dojo choking, and they shut off your air passage, the first thing you're going to do is come up and try to get that choke off your neck. And that's where the pluck comes from, the Krav Maga system. And he did that across the board with a lot of different attacks. And he formed a self-defense system that's based on instinctual movement and giving you incredible combative abilities to destroy your opponent. In other words, our job in Krav Maga is to turn you from the prey to the predator instantaneously because it's a self-defense system. We're not running around ambushing people in the street, punching them in the face, stealing their wallets. We're going to be in a self-defense situation. So we teach you the stance that gets you ready to deal with it, but then we teach you how to deal with the threat, whether it's a punch, a headlock, a bear hug, a gun, a knife, a club. But the big thing is to turn that equation around. So once you deal with the danger, you obliterate your opponent and send him packing fast. He either leaves quick or he ends up on the ground in a bloody mess. And that's what Krav Maga is all about.
So would you say that I know you said you took Kenpo back when you were in Massachusetts for
Yes.
because you were working at a bar and you were getting into these altercations with your customers that were being rowdy. Would you say that you would have highly benefited more from Krav Maga versus the Kenpo that you were taking?
Well, I'm kind of a special case because I was a bar bouncer for 30 years, bar bouncer to bar owner, and always worked in big rock and roll, Jack Daniel, crazy music places. So I had been in a lot of fights. I had a lot of fight experience. I was disarming people. I was disarming guns, but way before I had any training, dealing with knives way before I had any training. I have the scars and bruises to show it. Maybe that's because I didn't have the training, but the Kempo really helped me because it gave me a systemized methodology. The problem with martial arts, it takes a long time to apply it, okay? Because you have to develop the muscle memory. It took me about 3 years before I actually was able to use Kempo in my bar experiences. The beauty of Krav Maga, because it's a hand-to-hand combat system, is designed to teach you things right away. You don't have 3 years to take a guy in boot camp and give him hand-to-hand combat skills. So yeah, I think the answer to that question is a big yes.
So you've been working or running the Academy of Self Defense for 18 years now, and you've had tons of thousands of people come in from different backgrounds, different experience levels. What do you think is the main thing that people are surprised about are when they come and they take a class at the school and they learn about Krav Maga?
I think what surprises them is their potential to defend themselves is there. It doesn't matter what shape you're in, what size you are, what age you are. Everyone can defend themselves. And this is what Krav Maga gives you right away. In 30 days, people come up to me and say, I can't believe how I'm punching now. I can't believe how I'm kicking now. I can't believe what a difference this makes. I can't believe that I actually have a strategy to deal with someone if I am assaulted in the street, if I'm harassed in the movie line. I don't have to stand there and take it. I can't believe that I actually had the weaponry that you told me I was going to develop, that I can punch, that I can kick, that I can block the attack, that I can walk around with my head high and not run around in a slinky way looking for the first corner to hide in if I'm confronted with someone. So this is what I think surprises people, that they really can do it. They can really defend themselves. They can really defend their loved ones, their children. And I think this is the best part of the being in this business, is the awakening of people to their own potentiality, because we all have it. Okay, just like every mammal is wired to defend itself and its children, whether it's a mouse, a dog, a cat, a lion, a wolf. We're mammals. We have that. We have the wiring. We just need the training to take that adrenaline dump, that cortisol dump, and turn it into positive action rather than becoming prey and a victim. And that's I think the beauty of Krav Maga. It gives you that quick. It develops. The Israelis are amazing. They all work the same way in all their different disciplines. The first thing they focus on is teaching you how to punch, teaching you how to kick, because they know if you're not confident in your own weaponry, in your own punching, in your own kicking, you don't have a damn chance to win that fight. It's like going into battle with an empty gun. It may work, but when the bullet starts flying, it falls through the floor pretty darn quick. So our first job is to let you know that if you punch someone, if you kick someone, if you elbow someone, it's going to have drastic results. And I cannot tell you how many times in the nightclub business I've watched some guy or gal punch someone or strike someone, and the guy looks at him and goes, that's all you got? And then they get obliterated. Well, I got to make sure in my school that if you punch someone, they're going down. If you kick someone, they're going down, because there's no room for fake stuff in the street. Okay, there's no room for liquid courage in the street. That's why we take it so serious here, that we don't give you a false sense of security by telling you you can fight before you're ready to fight. I used to have a motto in the bar business. There's only one thing worse than someone getting into a fight who doesn't know how to fight. And that's someone getting into a fight who doesn't know how to fight but thinks they do. Those are the people that get hurt really bad. So our job is to give you those skills, to give you that confidence, and then give you the ability to actually defend yourself as time goes on. It doesn't happen in 30 days. No. In 30 days, we're going to be able to teach you how to punch someone and kick someone, but it's going to take a little longer than that. But, if you don't have tools in your toolbox, you don't have a chance of being able to fix your car. So our job is to give you those tools, build your confidence, and we start doing that right away. And you see that light go on. You see young ladies who come in here timid and nervous, and in 30 days later, they're coming in with smiles, just ready to hit that bag. We just had a test, okay, at the school. And we had a number of young girls who have never, ever done anything like Krav Maga. And these kids just went crazy in that yellow belt test. It was phenomenal what we saw. And this was part of our training here, and this is part of that. I always tell these martial arts instructors who are always talking about legit. Is it legit? Is it not legit? I keep telling people, listen, guys, we can't make badasses. That's not our job. Our job is to give you skills, is to give you a training system. As far as being able to become a badass or letting that tiger out of the cage, That's up to you. Okay? We can't create that. That's the half of the equation that comes from your sweat and your tears and your own personal strength. Can we help you with it? Damn straight we can. But that ultimate goal of standing up and being ready to fight it out and knowing you have the courage and the ability to do it and the fearlessness to do it, that comes from you. That comes from within. And our job is to give you the toolbox that's going to set that free. And that's what we do at ASD, and that's what we do in our Krav Maga system.
So, is Krav Maga still taught in Israel? Is it taught only to the military? Are there Krav Maga schools there so that everyday people get to do it, or how is Krav Maga in Israel?
It's taught in the military, and there are Krav Maga schools in the country. There are some big Israeli Krav Maga organizations that are functioning in Israel, but Krav Maga is part of Israel. It's I have in my synagogue where I'm the director of security, I have quite a few Israelis in the synagogue who have moved to America. They all know Krav Maga. They haven't trained in it for quite some time, but it's all part of their life. And it's it's a direct product, just like Haifa oranges. Krav Maga is a product right from Israel.
So, how young can you be to take Krav Maga?
Well,
Is
our
it for
kids
all ages,
programs,
or is it?
yeah, our kids program starts at 6 years old. The beauty of it is Amy developed a very simple system, so anyone can learn it, anyone can teach it, anyone can get great at it. You can be in a wheelchair and learn Krav Maga. You can be 74 years old like myself and on my way to being 74, 73 like myself, and learn Krav Maga. You can have physical handicaps like being in the wheelchair, as I said, and learn Krav Maga. There's no boundaries here. Amy developed Krav Maga for everybody. The problem is the instructors. The instructors have to be able to take his system and bring it to the person and teach it to them. And that's what we're good at ASD. I think that's what we're good at Vanguard Krav Maga.
So, have you? Who were the names of those two people that you were telling who were Amy's students and they brought Krav Maga to the United States?
Okay, one's name is Darren Levine,
Mm-hmm.
and his wife Marty, who passed away at a young age. But to this day, I think she was really the force behind Krav Maga worldwide. That was the most important organization in bringing Krav Maga to the United States. The other gentleman's name is Eyal Yanilov. I call him the Prince of Krav Maga. He is just one of the most wonderful men I have ever met in my life. And he has an organization now called Krav Maga Global. And Amy picked Darren Levine and Eyal to spread Krav Maga around the world. And he actually would come to the United States with Darren and Eyal, and they started Krav Maga worldwide together. And if it wasn't for Eyal and Darren, Krav Maga would not be in the place it is today. So regardless of what you're doing or your own organization like Vanguard Krav Maga, like we have, I always take my hat off to Darren and Eyal, because without them, Krav Maga would have never picked up speed and developed like it has in the United States, because it went into a field that was so developed. Martial arts had been in the United States for decades and decades and decades. And Darren was brilliant enough to actually take Krav Maga and add a belt system to it, because his motto was basically, when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Wait,
And
so Krav Maga, before they created the belt system, wasn't a belt system?
No, it was levels and practitioner, and the emphasis on going up the ladder was not as pronounced as it was in the United States, because it was a military system. Everyone in Israel did it. People were just into strictly training, because they used it every day. Okay, Israel was when Israel in its young days, I mean, it was not a safe place to live in. I mean, even after they declared statehood, after they won the wars, the Arab population has been our enemy. They were constantly striking out at Israeli civilians. So Krav Maga was a necessity. It wasn't an extracurricular activity. But Darren, when he brought it to the United States, he developed, the belt system basically, because he knew if it was going to spread on a commercial level, he needed to compete with that concept of people reaching goals and being rewarded with belts and being structured up the ladder. So Darren was extremely important, and his wife Marty were extremely important in spreading Krav Maga in the United States.
So, how did you meet these people? What were you doing, and what situation were you in that you had the chance of meeting these people that created the program or that brought Krav Maga to the United States?
Okay, so when we first opened up the Academy of Self-Defense, Worldwide had trademarked the name Krav Maga. So they had, if you wanted to teach Krav Maga, you had to do it under Worldwide's tutelage. There was a breakdown between Eyal and Darren after Emi's death. And Eyal actually sued Darren over the trademark and eventually won in court. So when we initially opened up, if we wanted to teach Krav Maga, which is what the Self-Defense Institute taught when Ed was their chief instructor, and Ed at that point was a brown belt in Krav Maga and a certified instructor, you had to do it under the guise of Worldwide. So we had to open up as a worldwide school. And I, at that point, went down to Worldwide, negotiated with them, signed the licensing agreement, and for our first 2 years, we were a Krav Maga worldwide school. And actually, it was 3.5 years, excuse me. And then the trademark battle took place, and I had met Eyal because I had an instructor here named Ofer, who was an Israeli guy, who had a connection to another Israeli instructor who was a good friend of Eyal. And I actually ended up giving Eyal some business consulting because he was getting ready to set up his own organization. And I helped him out with some basic business consulting. We had a few 1-2 hour phone calls. He was in Israel and I was in the United States. And I have an incredible amount of respect for both of these organizations. On the business case analysis, though, I did have some basic disagreements with Worldwide, which was just basically business. So at the point of our licensing agreement actually coming to an end, and when they lost the trademark, the licensing agreements were kind of null and void. At that point, we decided to go off on our own and start Vanguard Krav Maga, which is what we did.
What are these people like? Did you train with them? I know you helped them with the business and you went and you were working with them when Ev was getting certified and all of that, but did you actually train with them?
Yes, they're wonderful.
What are they
people.
like? What
They're
is it
wonderful
like to
people.
train with these people that have
Just-
so much knowledge?
They're just wonderful. I mean, they're humble, and they have the roots of Emi Lichtenfield with them, and they really want to do good. They're really Darren Levine and Eyal Yanaloff and Marnie. Just God bless Marnie. May God rest her soul. She was just like an incredible person. Their motivation is the same motivation as Emi. Okay? Their motivation is to train people so they can walk the earth in a safe way. And, I can't speak higher than talking about Darren Levine and Eyal Yanaloff. They are just wonderful, wonderful people. And their training is phenomenal, without a doubt. Their training is phenomenal. I would never say that ours is better or as good. That's just not what it's about. We just have a different teaching system in place. But you're looking at the deans of Krav Maga, Darren Levine and Eyal Yanilov, and I have nothing but to say but good about them. They're just wonderful people, and they have wonderful organizations, and their motivations are just all about teaching people how to defend themselves.
I remember you once telling me a story, something about you asked them why they don't spar and why they just train. What was the answer again? Or what was
Well,
the.
those guys, I do spar. Okay, Worldwide has a big sparring part to it. I had asked a couple of Israeli commandos that I knew who trained in Krav Maga, and they, I asked them about sparring, and they looked at me and they said, "We don't spar. Sparring builds a false sense of security." They said that street fighting and battle is a lot different than sitting in a controlled environment and sparring, which is mostly martial artsy kind of tic tac and going back and forth. In Israel, the training is a lot more realistic because, as I said, it's used quite a bit on an everyday level in real street self defense. Their idea of taking it up to a higher limit is just physical confrontation with usually one guy taking a pretty good beating until it's time to call it quits. So, the sparring that is done that we see is just really not relevant to street battle. And I can tell you from being in the bar business and being in hundreds of altercations, in reality thousands. I just don't like to pat myself on the back. I have seen martial arts just get their teeth knocked right down their throat. And someday I'm going to do a podcast for the empty bottle of some of the things I've seen in the bar business where guys have set up in a martial arts stance and literally got obliterated by seasoned street fighters. So when I said to you earlier, the worst thing you can do is give people a false sense of being able to defend themselves. As paraphrased in my famous slogan in the bar business, the only thing worse than a guy getting into a fight who can't is a guy getting into a fight who doesn't know how to fight and thinks he can. I've seen a lot of guys really get beaten because they've been given a false sense of being able to defend themselves by martial arts training. Now, I have also seen guys who are martial artists who are really good at defending themselves, but they are years and years in training. I watched a kid one day in a street battle in Dorchester beat up about 7 gangbangers by using Taekwondo kicking. But this was an advanced dude who, in his beautiful Taekwondo training, obliterated a bunch of dudes and kicked them hard enough to knock their faces apart. So that is there also. But there's a lot of people who train in martial arts who are just not ready for the streets yet. And I've seen a lot of people, when they spar, they get done sparring and they think they're the baddest asses in the world. And the next thing you know, they're going to go into the street and get obliterated. The other thing, too, is, and it drives me crazy, when I used to see the sparring in this school and at SBI before we stopped it here, was people being proud of injury. In other words, what they call Krav Maga tattoos. I'm proud that I have a bruise. I'm proud that I have my hands busted up. I'm proud that I got a black eye. When a guy like me, who has had his eye almost taken out in a street fight, okay, who's ended up in the hospital getting stitched up, because you always take some kind of damage in a battle, especially when it's from a self-defense viewpoint. Okay, there's nothing proud of those injuries. They convert to potential death in the street. That black eye could be an eye out of the socket. That bruise, okay, on the side of your temple could be a death blow. Okay, that bleeding ear could be your ear ripped off. That bloody lip could be your teeth knocked down your throat. So it used to just drive me crazy when I would see people strut around. Look at this. look at my tattoo. Oh, look at my black eye. Okay, that's nothing to be proud of. That means you didn't defend yourself properly. That's failure. Okay, that's not something to be proud about. And in the street, that black eye could be an eye out, like I said. So this is why we don't spar. Okay, it's a joke. When you get into our upper belts in our system of Krav Maga, the training gets more intense. It's more direct, but there's no ticky-tacky sparring. That's out the door. The Israelis don't believe in it, and we don't believe in it.
So you were talking about the person that told you this was an Israeli commando. Is that
Yes.
equivalent to a general, or is that
No, no,
more?
no. He's just a commando. He's a guy who's in a special unit who has seen an enormous amount of action.
So is
You
that
know,
like the
he's a
SEAL
yeah, he's like
team?
he's the Israeli version of Ranger, Special Forces, Navy SEAL. You know, that's what he is. And I can't mention his name, but I've heard it from a number of other people. As a matter of fact, Ofer, who was our Israeli instructor here before he left to start his own school, when he saw us sparring, he would come up to me and go, "Neal, what is this? What is this crap? What are they doing? What are they doing? You know, this is what are we learning here?" I said, "Well, what do you do in Israel?" He goes, "In Israel, one guy ends up down. That's how we train for real stuff." So this is why it took us years and years and years to 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 get Krav Vanguard off the sparring scene. But this is a much better training system now as a result.
Do you know about? So in Israel, they teach Krav Maga, and here when they brought it here, that you were talking about how they systemized it and put levels and put a belt system to it. Did that travel back to Israel, or is Israel still doing the we're just training to learn because we need
You
to
know
kind
something
of
I
thing?
don't know about the specific Israeli organizations, but I still think they're pretty much on the practitioner and expert level, which has always been the Israeli model. And it's a much different type of system. I'm sure there's plenty of schools where it's just pure training. In other words, you go do your Krav Maga, you just train, train, and train, and don't worry about going up in rank. But I'm pretty sure most of the Israeli organizations have still stuck with the practitioner expert level.
So earlier you brought up testing and how our school recently had testing. Do you know anything about? I know that you said that in Israel they have the practitioner and expert levels. Is there any kind of test or something big that they do in order to just test out their skills, or is it just pure training?
I think something. I really can't answer that. I'm not quite sure. I have to actually do some research in that. I don't know if they have it. I don't know if they have a standard testing. Now I know worldwide tests are we modeled basically our backbone of our tests after the worldwide testing system. I think now it's a bit different, but it's organized very similarly. The tests are consist of a physical part of it, training and testing people and their combatives, and then of course the technique training. And as the levels go up, the testing is a little bit more intense as you go up in level, which you would expect going from yellow to black belt. But I think our system, the beauty of it is over the years, it's totally unified with what people are actually training in. In other words, at the test, there's nothing coming out of the bag that you haven't had experience in. So I think that's the key to why our testing system works so well.
What do you think is the number one most important thing that your school teaches its students on day one?
I think it's the fact that they know that they can come in here, train hard, but do it safely without any fear of injury. In other words, we're going to give you this hardcore Israeli based hand-to-hand combat training, but it's going to be at a level and in an organized manner with a curriculum and a lesson plan that's going to ensure your safety. And because of that, you are going to go up that skill ladder and that development ladder as fast as your potential allows you to do it. The other thing is, I think folks realize that we're not here to bring you up to our conception of who you are, what you are, and who you should be. Our job is to bring you up to your potential at a comfortable pace and level. And that's what we're really good at ASD in general in all our programs and at Vanguard Krav Maga for our Krav Maga system. We're not here to prove to you how great we are, how tough we are, how great fighters we are. We're here to figure out where you are and bring you up to the level to be the best that you can be. And that's what we get across right away. And that's why when you look at our classes, people are smiling. People are feeling good about themselves no matter when they start or what they do. The other thing we do is we don't just send you home after class. We want to know what you think, how you feel, what you liked, if there's anything you didn't like, if there's anything we can do better. That's the way we relate to the folks who come in here because we're serious about teaching people how to defend themselves because it communicates something and gives them something that goes beyond just defending yourself in the street and training at ASD. More confidence, more self-esteem, more respect for each other. It makes you a better father. It makes you a better mother. It makes you a better brother. It makes you a better sister. It makes you a better co-worker. It makes you a better participant in organizations you might be part of. Self-confidence, self-esteem, and also respect for other people is all part of the ASD and Vanguard Krav Maga formula. I'll tell you, I haven't been in an altercation for quite some time. Okay. Yeah, because, the beauty about Krav Maga is part of what we teach you is avoid the problem. And that's not only the gun and the knife, that's avoid the problem in general. So I am always looking out for potentially problem situations. It could be when I'm with my dogs. It's when I'm with my wife. It's staying away from anything that I think could be a potential threat to anyone's safety. And that goes for my kids. That goes for my wife. That goes for my friends. That goes with my dogs. It changes your entire mindset. Krav Maga is about self-defense in life. So I'm always looking to be a practitioner of Krav Maga in everything I do. Avoid the danger. Rule number one, avoid the danger and go home safely. For example, about 5 years ago, I was having a couple of cocktails on Friday night with my wife, and there was a bang at my door, and there was a couple of dudes who just didn't look right at my door. They looked like they were problems. They had magazines at like 11:30 Friday night. And when I opened up that door, a little bit, they tried to wedge their foot in. Okay, in the old days, you know what I would have done? I would have opened that door and just beat the living hell out of both of them. But I did Krav Maga. I opened that door and let my dog out. And next thing you know, you never see two guys run down the block faster than those guys. That's Krav Maga. I said to myself, hey, I'm going to use my four-legged weapon. Why should I get my hands involved in this? So Krav Maga is taking care of things the smartest way and the least aggressive way and the least invasive way. So, it's like I say to people when they ask me, well, what's your mantra there for Krav Maga? I said, look, here's the way I look at it. violent confrontation is the worst solution to anything. So you avoid it at all costs. But if it happens, you have to win. Okay? And that's what the way I apply my Krav Maga in my life. When I was a kid, my friends used to have a motto for me. Newman never met a fight he didn't like. Okay? Well, that's totally changed. Now I'm avoiding fights. I'm avoiding confrontation. And even at 73 years old, I still do my Kempo forms every day. I still practice a little bit of Krav Maga here and there. I'm ready for action. But my big thing now is avoidance. And that's the mainstay. That's the game with Krav Maga.
What happened to those guys with the magazines at your door? Did
I don't know.
Zev
All
take
I
a
know
bite
is
of them?
all I know is I never saw him again, and I never wanted to know what kind of damage my Zebby did to them, if he did any. He might have just chased them away, and if not, that's their problem, not mine.
What about that situation that you had in San Francisco recently, a couple years back, with the Uber driver?
Oh, yes, there it is right there. Okay, I was in San Francisco during COVID. My wife had a business lunch with one of her associates. She's a major tax accountant. And I had just dropped her off, and I was getting ready to take my Zebby to the beach. I was going to take him to the ocean in Ocean Beach. I had about 2-3 hours.
Wait, I have to hit pause real quick.
Okay.
Zev likes the ocean.
Yes.
Does he swim in the water?
No, he would just go into it. He would walk in the water on the cold beach and just pace it.
Man, I
Yeah,
can't. Your dog was beautiful. Zev was such a beautiful dog.
he's an amazing animal. I just put a big, beautiful picture of him on the wall, and it's so good to have him there with me.
Good. Okay, sorry about that. Back to your story.
That's okay. So anyway, I'm on my way to Ocean Beach, and I'm close to Market Street in San Francisco, which is a city street, but traffic was very light because it was during COVID, and this guy side sweeps me. Okay, just side sweeps me. So I pull up across the cross street, and I come back, and this guy is an Uber driver with a passenger, and he immediately gets in my face. He comes right up to me, and I am a big guy in critical distance. I don't allow anyone that close to me to hit me right from the start, or I am going to strike. That's a Kempo rule, and that's a Krav Maga rule. And the first thing I said to him, I stuck my finger in his face. I looked at him. I said, I won't use the curse word I used on him. I said, listen, dude, you need to back the hell off right now, okay? Or this is going to get nasty and bloody real fast. And this guy just looked at me and backed off. And he said to me, he goes, you hit me, you hit me. I said, I did no such thing, dude. Look where the damage is, okay? The damage is in the front of your car and the side of my car. Man, you just came right around that bend to make that turn, and you just sideswiped me, and you damn well know it. So he starts getting agitated. I said, listen, man, take it down. Take it down right now. You got to stifle it right now, man. You do not want to cross that line. And I pointed to the line in the street. I said, you need to settle down, you son of a bitch. And that's when he calmed down. So I started looking for people on the sidewalk, and there were a couple of guys there, and they said, we saw it. We saw it. You're right. You're right. And the kid came out of the Uber, and he said, you're right. You're right. So I said, guys, can I get your names and numbers? And this guy started threatening them. You stay out of it. I'll find you. I said, listen, dude, you just shut your damn mouth right now. I said, do you want me to call 911? Is that what you want? He goes, no, I don't do that. I said, then shut the hell up and stand there and be quiet. So I got all the witnesses' names, and then he refused to give me his license and his insurance card. I said, you got 20 seconds to give me your license or I'm calling 911. And I said, don't get out of hand again because I'm losing my patience with you. So he finally settled down, gave me his license. I got all the witnesses' names. Everything was good. He looks at the kid in the back of the car, and he goes, get back in the car. I'll give you a ride. The guy looks at me and goes, are you crazy? You think I'm getting in the car with you again? Forget about it. He goes, I'll walk. So anyway, he left. The two guys on the side of the street left. I said to this guy, I said, listen, I'm going to give you a warning right now. I gave you my license. I said, if I see anything that looks like you at my house at any time, don't think you're going to get away with it. I said, don't even go there. Okay. My final warning to you about everything. Let's just take care of this like everyone takes care of traffic accidents. You give it to your insurance company, I'll give it to mine, and let's all go home as friends. You got me there? And the guy said, yeah, I got you. And he got in his car and left. And sure enough, the insurance companies adjudicated everything and he paid for the damage 100%. Not, something, not really. I've had so many, we're going to do a lot of podcasts in the futures with guns getting pulled on me and knives and really nasty fights. And, it doesn't faze me at all. But, the reason is I have training. I have Krav Maga. I have a system in my mind. Don't forget, when I looked at this guy, I was looking in his pockets for weapons. Okay. I was looking for bulges. I didn't see anything. I was checking him out. While this all was happening, I was a computer up there, a safety computer, getting in data. I knew he didn't have a gun. I knew he didn't have a knife. If he did, I was close enough to jump on him, okay? Because I was far enough for him. If he lunged at me, he couldn't reach me. But if I saw anything, I was going to be on him like a new suit. And there's nothing like the Krav Maga gun weapon defenses. And this is something, as I said earlier, I disarmed a lot of people. Okay, and that one story, which we'll talk about in the future, with a big wig in the city of Worcester, Massachusetts, pulling a gun on me in the bar one night, and how I dealt with it. I dealt with knives, I dealt with attacks, I dealt with being jumped by two people. So, at this point, I'm not nervous at all. But I set up, and I knew what I was doing. First, I backed his ass up and told him to get out of my face because he was in my critical distance. And if he wouldn't have, I might have struck him because I wasn't going to assume he wasn't going to strike me. When he backed off, I checked him out. I didn't see any signs of immediate threat. So I was, pretty solid here and handled it very calmly.
I'd still be scared.
Well, hey, listen, I got it. I got it. Yeah, the thing is, I always used to say to people, no matter how many fights I've been in, when you know it's going to go there, you get that adrenaline dump and you get a trill. You get a trill like, whoa, what used to go to my mind was, oh shit, baby, here it comes. But after a while, you take that and turn it into an energy rush. It gets you ready. Okay. So by the time I was in my second year of bouncing, I was on a fight like a new suit. No hesitation. Guy pulls a knife, I'm on him. Okay. Guy has a ring in his hand and he's blowing holes in this other guy's face off. That's another one I'll tell you about down the road when I was a bouncer. I'm on it. Okay. I'm not even thinking twice about it. It's like a seasoned soldier. After a while, it just happens. It's like my father said to me once. My father was one of the landing commanders at Iwo Jima. My father said to me, the battle doesn't start until the boys get bloody. Once it starts happening, man, you're in it. You're in it and you just do it. And that's what happens after a while when you have a lot of experience. And that's what sparring doesn't give you. People are saying, well, if I don't spar, I'm never going to be able to get there. I got news for you. Sparring and street fighting have nothing to do with each other. So, our job is to get people as close as they can get to that. But it's like I said to you, the real tiger is you. Okay, I can give you the skills, I can give you the training, I can give you the toolbox, I can push you, I can give you the guidance, but deep down, it's got to come from you. And that's why our testing, when we see these young ladies in that test, this past test, and there was a crew of them that just were unbelievable, one of them being one of our instructors, it's just so gratifying to see that because that's what I'm talking about. When you're tired and you're exhausted and you're still attacking and going crazy, that's the beginning of that tiger coming out. That's the badass coming out. That's what we can't give you. That comes from within. Yes, I am. Yes. And there was a couple of young ladies that Sean gave their yellow belts to in the office here because the other office was busy. And he said to them, I couldn't be prouder of you guys. You were just unbelievable. So, yes, yeah, yeah. And that's that's the fruition of our teaching system. That's the one thing I think that we have that's the best. I think our teaching system that we refined after 18 years by constant battling with each other, getting all the ego out of it, getting the testing grid. You know what you have done with the system, with the testing grid and electronics, and the way we work to get all the instructors on the same page so every technique is taught exactly the same, regardless who the face behind it is instructing that class. It's almost a miracle. It's amazing. In this industry, you don't see it. That we have we have bled that ego out of our system, which is the most gratifying thing to me because watching people get beat up many, many times and understanding it's because of ego, thinking you can do something when you can't, being sure of yourself when you shouldn't be, being haughty and picking on people and doing something stupid. That's 90% of the battle and fighting is getting rid of that ego. Then you can start training properly. You can start analyzing situations objectively. That's when you know when to avoid and when you know to go into action, just like I did with that Uber driver. I knew exactly what I was doing. If I was a hothead ego maniac and that guy got into my face after really damaging my car and trying to get out of it, I might have hauled off and just knocked his butt right out. But I handled it in a very calm, well I strategized what I was doing. I handled it calmly. No one got hurt. And I got the benefit of that when he ended up paying for all the damage because it was his fault 100%. So this is what we look to do. This is why I was saying this converts to your everyday life and how you deal with people. And, my sister one time after my first divorce, and I met my current wife, who my sister just fell in love with. I went to Minnesota to visit my mother, and my sister picked me up at the airport. And she looked at me and she said, Neal, I've been married to Paul now for a long time. And you know me, I'm a class A, and I'm not the easiest guy in the world to live with. But I figured out what makes great marriages. I said, what's that, Barb? She said, you got to pick your battles. And I think this is a great lesson in life, and this is a lesson in Krav Maga. We got to pick our battles here. Okay, we don't battle over minor stuff. We avoid problems when we can. We don't create problems that aren't there. We don't make a mountain out of a molehill in a situation. But when the time comes and we got to take it to the limit and go to the wall, we're capable of doing it. And when we do it, we're going to end up on top of the wall, and the other guy's going to end up in the ditch. And I think that sums it up very well.
That's amazing. You come full circle with that.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think so. I think so.
But yeah,
I
so
used to.
thank you
I,
so much for talking about the history of Krav Maga.
well, thank you for putting up with my hope not bombastic presentation.
No, no, I love the stories.